Hello. As you can see, today I'm going to be talking about the game Fresco. I believe this came out in 2010, and I think I acquired it sometime right after that. So I think I got it to play with my family. My wife really liked this one, and we played it, several times, and I played it with other people. But I haven't played it in quite a few years, really, until yesterday I played it. Actually, no, I played it today, earlier this morning, and I thought I'd do a video on it. So let's get started with how to set up. First thing you'll do is place the game board in the middle of the play area within easy reach of all players. This is actually a double-sided board, as you can see. One side is for 3 players, which I'm going to set up, and the other side can play up to 4 players. You can tell by the number of people here. So 1, 2, and 3, and the other one would have 4 and different spaces. But anyway, so I'm going to set up for the 3-player game. Players will choose a color, and they'll take a small screen in their color, like this one is blue, and set that in their play area. It's got kind of a turn reference thing on one side. And so anyway, each player will take one of those and put that in their play area. Each player will take an action sheet. It's 2-sided. You place it on side 1 at the start of the game and put that behind your small screen, like so. Each player will also take a larger screen in their player color. Again, this is blue, and on the back of that it has a paint mixture guide, and they'll also put that larger screen in their play area. Behind the large screen they'll place one red, one yellow, and one blue cube. Those represent your paint pieces. Each player will also place 12 thalers, which is the currency in the game, behind their large screen. So behind your large screen you hide your money and your paint pieces. Each player will take the 3 master painters in their player color, which is these larger wooden figures. And they'll take their 5 apprentices in their color, which are the smaller wooden figures. Each player will take one of their master painter figures, and the rules say put them in the linen bag and draw them out one at a time, and place the first one pulled out in the 1 space, the second one pulled out in the 2 space, and the third one pulled out in the 3 space. I'm just gonna put them down in this order, but again, you're supposed to put them in the bag and pull them out, 1 on 1, 1 on 2, and 1 on 3. Each player then takes one of their master painters and places it on one of these spaces above. This is the hostel space, and they place one of their master painters up here above the hostel. Then in a 4-player game, you take these market tiles which show paint pieces on them. There's 14 in a 4-player game, and you put them in the linen bag. In a 3-player game, you're only going to have 11 market tiles. You take out the piece that shows 2 blue, the piece that shows 2 yellow, and the piece that shows 2 red, and those just are out of the game for a 3-player game. Then all of the other market tiles, again 11 in a 3-player game, go in this linen bag. You will then draw tiles out to fill these 3 booths in a 3-player game. So you'll draw 2 tiles for this booth, 3 tiles for this booth, and 4 tiles for this booth. So just kind of randomly like this. So we put 1. So I'll go ahead and do that and fill up the booths. So there I've got the 3 booths filled with the market tiles, and there should be 2 left in the bag, which there are. Just set the bag aside. You take the Fresco tiles, you find one of the ones that's worth 11 points, and put that in the center, covering up the center spot of the Fresco. You then turn over the other Fresco tiles and randomly shuffle them up and deal 1 on each space on the rest of the fresco, so I'll go ahead and do that. So once you're done, the fresco should be covered with the different fresco tiles like that. You'll then sort the coins by denomination 10, 5, and 1 and place them in the free spaces of the studio in the different spaces. You'll then place all the paint pieces in the 6 different spaces in the workshop sorted by color, like so. So you should have red, blue, yellow, green, purple, and orange. Each player then places one of their master painters on their color at the theater here in the mood display. And then one natural colored apprentice figure is placed above the theater for each player. And finally, the bishop figure is placed on the center space of the fresco. And that's it. That's set up. You should be all set up for 3 players here. Got red, green, and blue. And let's get to how to play. Alright, the game of Fresco is played over several rounds. Each round is broken up into 2 phases. The first phase is the choosing get up time and setting your mood, and the next phase is the planning and performing actions phase. So let's talk about what you do in the first phase. Alright, so starting with the last player, player in last on the victory point track, they will be the first person to get to choose their wake up time and set their mood. And of course, at the beginning of the game, nobody's out on the victory point track, so you go by the starting spaces. So the last player in the starting spaces, so blue here would get to choose first, and then red, and then green. So what you choose your get up time, either 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, or 8 o'clock. However, the earlier you get up, that it makes your mood drop. So if you choose the 5 o'clock get up time, your mood drops by 3, and you have to pay more for the market, each market tile you buy, because you're there earlier. So as you see, as you get later, your mood either adjusts less or not at all, or actually becomes positive, and you pay less for paint in the market. So blue, maybe he wants to get up at 7 o'clock, and 2 people can't choose the same get up time, so maybe red wants to get up at 6 o'clock, and we'll say green chooses 8 o'clock. So then you adjust your mood, so red has to adjust his mood down 2. Blue doesn't have to adjust his mood at all, and green actually gets to go up 1. If you get your figure up into the +1 spaces here, then you get to take your natural colored wood piece and put that with your other apprentice pieces, and that gives you an extra piece that you can use for that round, or as long as you're in your mood is in the positive ones there. If you ever drop out of that positive one into one of these other spaces, you have to put that worker back in the change mood phase. If you come down here and get into the -1 spot, then you actually have to lose one of your apprentices, and again you'll lose that worker until you come out of one of the -1 spots in the change of mood part. And again, these are the market prices you'll pay. So red, for each market tile that he may buy this round, it's going to cost him 3 per market tile. Blue, it'll cost him 2, and green, it'll only cost him 1. So that's the choose, get up time, and adjust mood phase. And now we'll talk about the planning and performing actions phase. Well, one more thing I should mention about, so the get up time is actually the player order for the when you're doing your action. So the player that chose the earlier get up time will get to go first for each action. Then so in this case, red will get to go first, then blue, and green will go last for each action. Next, players will simultaneously plan their actions, so they'll take their apprentices and place them on the spaces on their action sheet according to what they want to do for the round. You have the market action, which is where you can buy paints from the market booths. We have the cathedral action, which is where you can work to restore the fresco or work on the altar. We have the studio action, which is where you'll just paint portraits of people in order to earn money. We have the workshop blend paints action. For each worker there, you'll get to blend paints according to this chart, so you can mix a yellow and a red to get an orange, or a blue and a yellow to get a green, or a blue and a red to get a purple. So for each worker you put on one of these spaces, you can mix twice. And then finally we have the theater action space, which improves your mood by 2 and lets you go up 2 on the mood track at the theater. So again, during the planning phase, each of the players will place their workers according to what they want to do. Now, if you put 2 workers here at the market, you'll get to take the market action twice, or you can buy 2 different tiles at a booth. But again, you have to split your 5 workers up, so we'll just go as an example and put 1 worker on each thing, and we'll go over each one a little bit more in detail now. I'm just going to move the screen out of the way for right now so we can talk about it. Alright, so if this player put his workers like this, when it came to his turn, he would get to take 1 market action. So because he used 1 worker there, if he had put 1, 2, or 3 workers there, he could take 3 market actions. And the actions you can take at the market is either buy paint or close down a booth. So if you choose to buy paint, you get to choose one of the available booths if you're the first player. In this case, if you were red, because he got up earliest, you would get to choose one of the 3 available booths, and then depending on the number of workers or apprentices, like in this case the blue player only played 1, he would get to buy 1 tile from the booth he chooses. So you only get to choose 1 booth, and you get to buy from that booth. So if blue chose this booth, then he could buy 1 of these tiles for the price. Again, he pays 2 per tile, so maybe he wanted to get this green, so he would buy this paint for 2, so he would pay 2 of his money, his thalers here back into the supply. He would get the green paint piece and put that behind his screen. And because he only played 1 apprentice there, that's all he can buy. So all the other pieces there just get picked up and put back. All these pieces get put back in the linen bag. So once a player chooses a booth, they can buy a number of pieces there depending on the number of apprentices they put on the market action, and then once they're done buying, all the rest of those pieces just go back in the bag. The other players cannot buy from that same booth. So on the next player's turn, when they do their market action, they would have one of these two booths to choose from, to buy from. And again, if they use 2 apprentices, they could buy 2 tiles. If they used 3 apprentices, they could buy 3 tiles if they chose this booth. Again, you pay the cost per tile, depending on what wake-up time you choose. And then any pieces, you don't go back in the bag. The other thing you can do, instead of buying paints, you can just choose a booth. If you put at least one apprentice in your market action section, you can choose one booth and not buy any paints there, and just shut it down and just pick up all the paint pieces and put them back in the bag. That's kind of more if you are just trying to prevent somebody from getting pieces. So again, as I mentioned, we would start with the red player. He would do his market action, then the blue player would do his market action, as long as he put at least one apprentice there, and then the green player would do his market action if he put a green. Now you don't have to put one on every space, and if you didn't put one on a space, then you just don't take a turn when you're resolving that action. All right, so next we have the cathedral action. So the number, depending on the number of workers or apprentices you placed there, that's how many of those actions you can take. In this case, blue placed 1. And when you take one of those actions, you're restoring a section of the fresco. So if you have the paint pieces that are shown on that fresco tile, for instance, if you had a purple, a green, and a red, you would give those up out of your supply and take that fresco tile, put that in your flip it over, put that in your player area, and that's worth 9 points. So then you would move your hold on. I moved the wrong guys here. Oh my goodness. So blue got 9 points. He would take his worker and start here with 1, put him up on 9. Now, because the bishop is adjacent to the spot that he restored, he would get 2 extra points. So he would get actually 11. If the bishop is on the spot that you restore, you actually get 3 extra bonus points. So he would get 12. And you can, before, when you're doing your cathedral action, you can, before you decide which space you're going to restore, you can pay 1 thaler to move the bishop 1 space in any direction, diagonal or orthogonal, whatever. So he could move him here, and then say that's the space he's going to restore, and then take that tile piece, and again, like I said, he would get 12 points because he moved the bishop on top of the space that he was going to restore. If the bishop was over here, he could pay 1 thaler to move the bishop here, and he would be adjacent, and he would get the 2 bonus points if he restored this space. The other option you have, instead of restoring one of the pieces of the fresco, you can restore the altar over here. So you can always, for 1 yellow, red, and blue, you can restore the altar for 2 points, and for every green, orange, or purple piece that you substitute for a red, yellow, or blue piece, you get a bonus point. So if you used a yellow, red, and green, instead of 2 points, you would get 3 points. If you used a yellow, orange, and purple, instead of 2 points, you would get 4 points. You would get the 2 points plus a bonus of 1, 2 for substituting one of these colors. The other option you have is just use 1 green, 1 orange, and 1 purple for 6 points. Alright, so everybody would resolve the cathedral actions if they had a worker there, or more than one. If you had placed 2 of your apprentices there, then you can do that action twice if you're able. If you placed 3 of your apprentices there, then you can do that action 3 times if you're able. And again, the player with the earlier start time does all of his first. and the player with the next start time does all of his. Then the next player with the higher start time does all of his. So they would do all their cathedral actions. All right, then the next thing you would do is the studio action. If you placed one worker there, you get 3 thalers from the supply, and that just goes into your personal supply. Again, it's like you're getting paid for painting a portrait, and that's kind of also showed on the board here. You know, you painted a portrait, you get 3 thalers. So if you put 2 apprentices there, you would get 6, and if you put 3 apprentices there, you would get 9. All right, the workshop blend paints. For each worker you place there, you can blend 2 paints like we talked about. So he could blend a yellow and a red to get yellow and a red to get an orange. So he would then take an orange and put it in his supply, and you could do it twice. So if you had another set of paints that you could blend, you can do that also. And if you put 2 workers there, you'd be able to blend paints up to 4 times. And then finally, what we talked about already, the theater lets you move 2 points up on the mood track. It's like you're sending your apprentices to the theater, so their mood goes up, so you get to move up 2 spaces on the mood track. If you had placed 2 of your apprentices there, you could go up 4 spaces. Of course, you can never go higher than here. But again, if you're here. Now, when you move here during the theater action, even if you move up into the positive, you don't get to take another worker at that time. Or if you move down into the negative, you don't lose a worker at that time. The only time you gain or lose the worker is when you're doing the setup, the choose get up time and adjust mood phase. That's the only time you'll gain your extra worker or lose your extra worker. So once all players have done all their actions, of course the booths would be empty at that point, so the first thing you do is draw tiles back out and refill the markets. Then each player receives 1 thaler for each fresco tile they've restored. Remember, every time you restore a fresco tile, you flip it over and put it in your play area, and that's kind of a reminder that you'll now get paid at the end of the round 1 thaler for every fresco tile you've restored. So that's kind of your income for working on the fresco. All players will then move their master painters back up to their sleeping places at the top of the hostel. And of course, by then you're, scoring. You'll probably have scored some points or something. You'll be out here like so with your master scorers, and then you'll start a new round. And as I said, the person in last on the victory point track will get to choose their wake up time first, and the person in second place will then get to choose their wake up time, and then the person in first place is the last one to get to choose their wake up time. So you continue playing rounds like that until you begin a round where there are 6 or less fresco tiles left to be restored. And once that round starts where you've got 6 or less, that's going to be the last round of the game. When you start the last round, all players will flip their action sheet over to the number 2 side, and you'll see that at that point there's an extra, your theater space is replaced by an extra cathedral action, so you'll be able to do a cathedral action and mix paints and then do another cathedral action. So once all players have finished all their actions at the end of their last round, there's no need to refill the market. There's no income is not paid at the end of the last round for fresco tiles you've restored. You just go to final scoring. So for final scoring, for every 2 thalers you have, you get to move 1 additional space on the victory point track. And you do that in player order, so the player who chose the earliest wake up time for that last round gets to add up the points they get for their thalers first, and then the player who chose the second earliest wake-up time will do theirs. And finally, the player who chose the last wake-up time will do theirs. And the reason that may matter is I didn't mention, but during the game when you're moving your victory point marker, if you would ever land on a space where another person's victory point marker is at, you choose either to go behind or in front of that player's marker, because two players' markers cannot be on the same victory point space. On the last round, if you land where another player's victory point marker is, you just go forward. You don't choose. You can't choose to go behind. You always go one space forward. And again, when I say go forward, so if this guy was going to land here, he would go to the next free space, so he would actually end up passing both those players and going there. And of course, then he would win the game if that was final scoring. But final scoring, you'd be more down here than up there. So again, during the planning phase, each player will choose where they want to put their workers, like so. So maybe blue chose to set his like that, green chose to set hers like that, and red chose to set hers like that. Once all players have finished choosing what actions, finish their planning phase, say they finished choosing their actions, then all players will lift their small screens so everybody can see what actions they've chosen to do for that round. Alright, I think I got everything set up back how it should be at the start of the game. So we'll start again with blue is going to choose his wake up time first since he's further back on the starting player track there. And we'll just say he wants to make sure he gets to the market first, so he's going to choose a 6 o'clock wake up time. Alright, red gets to choose next, so he decides he's going to choose 7. And green, he could choose 5 and get up earlier, but he'll lose 3 mood and have to pay 4 per tile. He don't want to do that, so he chooses 8 o'clock. Alright, so blue has to go down 2 on the mood. Red doesn't have to move, and green actually gets to go up 1. Alright, now everybody simultaneously does their planning. So I'm going to say blue's going to do 2 market actions. He's going to do one cathedral action. Maybe he wants to get a little money. And he's going to mix some paints. Alright, and we'll say green over here. Maybe he's just going to do one of each. And red, we'll say maybe he wants to go up further on the mood track. So he's going to put 2 guys there. Alright, once everybody says they're done planning, everybody removes their small screen and shows everybody what they chose. Then in wake up orders, we start doing the actions. So blue with the earliest wake up time, he gets to go first. Well, he chose to do 2 market actions. So he can buy up to 2 paint tiles if he wants, or just close down a booth, but he's not going to do that. But he's got to pay 3 per tile so that he wants. So he's going to choose this booth, and he's going to buy this one and this one. So he gets a green and a blue and a red. Green and a blue and a red, and those just go behind his thing. Now he had to pay 3 for each of those, so that's going to cost him 6 thalers. Remember, he has to pay 3 because of his wake-up time. Now the other 2, they just get pulled and go away, because each player can only go to 1 booth. Alright, well, red had the next earliest wake-up time, so we see what he chose for the market action. He did 1, so he's going to get to buy one tile or shut down one booth. He's going to choose this booth, and he's going to buy that orange. Now he only has to pay 2, so he'll just take 2 of his thalers, and he's going to get that orange. So he takes that orange, puts it in his supply, and then the rest of these tiles at the booth he chose just go away. So finally that leaves green. He just used 1 worker, so he can just buy 1 tile at the remaining booth. He's going to choose the one that has 3 red. So he'll get that one, so he gets the 3 red. Puts that behind his thing. Now he only has to pay 1, so he'll take 1 of his thalers and put it there. And now all these tiles will just go back in the bag. Alright, well next we move on to the cathedral action, again in wake up turn order, so blue goes first. So he did 1 cathedral action, so he can attempt to restore 1 of the fresco tiles or the altar. He's got a green, so he's got a green and a red and a yellow, so maybe he wants to do this one that's a green and red and a yellow. Now the bishop is here, so he wants to pay 1 thaler to move the bishop 1 space diagonally, and so he can't get him on the spot, but he gets him adjacent to it, so he'll get 2 bonus points for that. So he says he's going to restore this one for his cathedral action, so it's a green, a yellow, and a red. Again, green, yellow, red. So returns those to the supply, and he picks up this tile, puts that in his play area. That's worth 5 victory points, plus 2 for having the bishop adjacent. So he now moves his guy to the 7, 5 plus the 2. And now the bishop always moves to where the tile was restored. I'm not sure if I mentioned that when I was going over the rules, but he does. Alright, since he only had 1 worker on the cathedral action, he can only do 1 cathedral action. So now we go to the player with the next earliest wake up time, which is red, and he also did 1 cathedral action. So he's got an orange, a blue, red, and a yellow. So maybe he wants to do this one that's orange, yellow, and blue. Now there's no point in moving the bishop because he can't get him adjacent. You can only pay 1 thaler to move him 1 space adjacent, and that would not get him next to his thing. So he's not going to pay to move the bishop, but he is going to restore this fresco tile. So he needs an orange, yellow, and blue, which he has. And that gives him 5 points, and then the bishop moves there. Alright, now green with the last wake up time. He also did a cathedral action, so he takes his worker, he gets to do 1. He's just going to do, he's got a red, blue, and yellow. There's 1 for red, blue, and yellow. He's going to pay 1 thaler to move the bishop onto that spot. So he's going to pay those. Red, blue, or yellow, red, blue. And he gets 3 points for that, plus 3 points for the bishop being on that spot. So that's going to give him a total of 6 points. So he'll go to 6 points on the victory track, and then he takes that and puts that in his play area. Alright, so everybody's done all their cathedral actions. Alright, the next action is the studio action. Blue, again, he has the earliest wake up time, so he goes first, and he did do 1 of those, so he gets 3 thalers from the supply over there, and that goes in his area. Red with the next earliest wake up time. He didn't do a portrait or a studio action, so he doesn't gain anything, but green did, so we come to green, and now he gets 3 thalers. Okay. Alright, the next is the workshop blend paints. So blue, again, with the earliest wake up time, he goes first, so he can do up to 2 blend paint actions. Well, he's only got paint to do 1, so he's going to do 1 blend paint action. So he's going to blend a red and a blue, which is going to give him a purple. And that goes into his area. Now he could do 2 blend paints with 1 worker, but he doesn't have anything else to blend. Alright, red with the next earliest wake up time, he did do a blend paint action, so he's going to take his worker. Unfortunately, he only has 1 red paint, so there's nothing he can blend, so that worker was just kind of wasted. And now we go to green. He also did a blend paint action, but sadly he's only got 3 red paints, so that action is wasted also. Finally, the theater action. Well, blue didn't do any theater action, so he doesn't do anything. Red next, he actually did 2, so he gets to move up 4. 2 for this one, 2 for this one. He gets to move up 4 on the theater, on the mood track. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now again, you don't take your worker now. The only time you would take that extra worker is when you're doing your choose wake up time and adjust mood. But his guy is up there, so he will probably, unless he ends up taking an early wake up time where he's got to move down to, he'll probably get an extra worker on the next turn. And green did do a theater action also, so he gets to move up 2. So he's up there in the positive also. Alright, so that's all actions. All players have done all their actions. So the next thing we do is draw tiles out of the bag and refill the market, so let me do that. Alright, so I've redrawn market tiles again for the 3 booths. Next, players receive income for any Fresco tiles they restored. Blue did restore 1, and as a reminder, there's a thaler on the back, so he gets 1 thaler income. Actually, they each did 1, so they each get 1 thaler into their supply. All players move their master painters back up to the top of the hostel. And then the player who's last on the victory point track, which would be red, would get to choose his wake up time first. And then green would get to choose second, and then blue. So, I mean, that's how you'll go. You'll just keep playing rounds like that. Again, here, well, let's go ahead and just do one little bit here, just so we can show getting the extra workers. All right, red, he's furthest back on the track, so he gets to choose his wake up time first. He's up here. He definitely doesn't want to go down, so maybe he chooses 7 o'clock. Okay, green, he gets to choose next. He's up here. He doesn't want to go down, but he also would like to have first choice of the market tiles. So he's going to go ahead and choose 6 o'clock. And blue finally last. He could get up earlier, but he's going to go down 3 and he'll end up losing a worker. Now again, even if you move here, you don't lose 2 of your workers, you just lose the 1, but you don't get it back until you move out. And here you don't ever gain 2 extra workers, you just gain 1 extra, but you just have extra space to keep them. But anyway, he's going to choose the 8 o'clock. So now everybody adjusts their mood. So green's got to go down 2, so he doesn't get the extra worker. Red stays where he is, so he does get an extra worker. So now that worker comes to his supply, and he'll have an extra apprentice to use for his action sheet this round. Blue actually gets to go up 1, but that doesn't give him gain or lose anything. And now players would plan their actions. Well, everybody's got to put their small sheet back in front of their action board. Then they secretly plan their actions. Again, red will have an extra worker that he can place, so he'll have an extra action to take this round. So everybody will do their planning. Once everybody says they're ready, then everybody will remove their small screen, show what actions they've chosen for the round. And again, you'd go with the earliest wake-up times, so green would get to take his actions first for each of the different actions. You know, you go through them one at a time, just like we showed. So I think you see how it works. It's a pretty quick game. Again, it ends when there's only 6 or less tiles left on the Fresco. When you start a round, that will be the final round, and you'll flip your action tiles. or action sheets over. And again, as I mentioned, the difference is you have an extra cathedral action after the blend paints, and you don't have a theater action. But it's a quick, pretty easy family game. I think it's fun. Like I said, my wife enjoyed it quite a bit when we first got it, but we haven't played it in probably, I don't know, 5 years or so for some reason. Really need to get it out and play it again. But I like it. I enjoy it. Now this version that I have, which is the one from 2010, it does come with 3 expansion modules that you can. There's one, the portraits, the Bishop's Request is another one, and Blend Special Colors is another one. So again, it comes with the components for those, and you can throw those. You can mix and match. You can just add one of them or all of them, however you want to do. I just went over the basic game, but again, this one does come with the 3 small expansion modules. What versions are out now? I'm not sure. I know there was some kind of big box version sometime back that maybe it has even more expansions in it. I'm not sure. I kind of like just the base game. I think I've played with each one of those expansion modules at least once, and it's been so long, I don't really remember what they are, but if you or how they worked. But you can always go look that up if you're interested in the game. But I think I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.